Alrighty, CNT140. Here is our introduction to our fiber optic lab. First thing I'll do is I'll open my fiber optic lab here. You may want to download this as a Microsoft Word document or PDF. That's up to you. But I'm going to open it here for now. Let's do a quick overview of what we're going to do. This is all about fiber optic, from basic testing, troubleshooting, up to termination. So I'm trying to give you as many views of fiber optic as I can in this lab. Here's a little bit of background up top, a little bit about our connectors, and a reminder about preparation. For this lab, either create yourself a text file to put your answers in to submit to the Dropbox and D2L, or if you prefer, download this lab as a Microsoft Word or PDF, and then you can just type on top of it and submit this file to the Dropbox here on D2L. It's really up to you. Alrighty. First part of our lab, you're going to look at a visual fault locator. There's a video here on me using the visual fault locator to see how it works. Just make some observations about what you see when we're testing each side of the cable, if you will, and then how we would use this visual fault locator. Second part of the lab, we're going to be looking at a fiber optic microscope. Again, here's the video link for it. With the fiber optic microscope, we're actually looking at the end of the fiber optic, the actual ferrule, the little ceramic ferrule in the end, checking the connector to see if there's any problems with the connector that would be affecting our data flow, affecting our light flow through the connector. So with this video, I show you a little bit about how to use it. Unfortunately, I can't have you see down the eyepiece with our camera. So I have some samples here of what a good connector looks like under the microscope, and then what are some common problems you would see with some scratches, with some liquid and other epoxy or things that are not polished off, more great big scratches across, dirt, oily residue, fingerprint residue, those kind of things. So I'm going to have you take a look at those, and then I have you some questions about if you were looking at the scope, if you saw this, would it be usable, yes or no? If you saw this, would it be usable, yes or no? And a little bit about how the fiber optic microscope is useful. Third part of the lab, we're looking at our fiber optic power meter. So this is actually measuring the signal strength of a light signal going across our cable. This would give us an idea if we have too much of attenuation in a cable. So I have hooked up a power meter to our cable. Here's a video for it. With our cable with a red side, if you will, and the black connector side, if you will. Make some observations about what you're seeing there about that cable and its function and what your power meter is useful for. Fourth part of the lab, I have a qualification tester. You can almost think of this as like a fiber optic continuity checker, that kind of thing. I have video here of me using that on our fiber link, and seeing the different tests, the link establishment, the cable performance. What do you notice about those when we test? And again, what would this meter be useful for? The fifth and final part of our videos in our lab is actually using a fusion splicer to splice on a fiber optic connector, fiber optic termination on a cable. Here's a video of me doing this. This one's kind of long because it's a long process, but as you're going through, you want to take notes about how are we prepping it for cleaving, how we how we actually loading and infusing the fiber. Take a couple notes on what you're seeing to see this process, what all gets done to terminate a piece of fiber optic cable. The last and final part of our lab we're going to look at a couple of the requirements that the standard calls for with fiber optic cabling, and we're really looking at the 568D, the 3D section of our standard. So I have our standard here. We're looking at the 3D. So we'll scroll down here, and as we see, 3D is actually starting on page 53. So I'm going to scroll down there a whole bunch, and this should be our 3D right here. And I'm going to have you look at a couple of the requirements from the standard, from the fiber optic section of our standard. What type of fiber optic connector is specified, color code for, and some measurements on signal loss with our connectors. You're going to find all that here in the 3D section. These just couple of pages right here. Here is your color identification. There's your connector. There's your color identification. Coming down through here is your signal loss, and about your connectors, about splicing, and then about optical fiber connector loss. That's really the questions we're looking for. What kind of signal loss is allowed on our fiber? After all that is done, save your text file or PDF, and you're just going to submit that to the Dropbox here on D2L for this lab. And there is a quick overview of our fiber optic lab.